Let's talk about that feeling of being stuck, that quiet, frustrating paralysis when you know you want to improve, but you just can't seem to take the first step. You want to learn a new language, but you don't sign up for the class. You want to get in shape, but you don't go to the gym. You want to start your own business, but you never write the first line of the business plan. What is this invisible wall that stands between the person we are and the person we want to become? We often blame external factors, a lack of time, money, or energy. But if we are brutally honest with ourselves, the jailer is often internal. It is the deep, primal fear of looking incompetent, the fear of being a clumsy beginner, the fear of the judgment in other people's eyes as we stumble and fail. We are trapped in a prison of our own ego, a prison built from the desperate need to look good, which paralyzes our ability to actually get good. We instinctively believe that freedom is about breaking external chains, but the Stoics teach that the most important chains are the ones we forge in our own minds. The path to a powerful and meaningful life, they argue, is not about breaking out of a physical prison, but a psychological one. This brings us to one of the most foundational statements from the Stoic philosopher Epictetus. He draws a clear line in the sand and tells us where true liberty is found. He states that no man is free who is not master of himself. This is the Stoic definition of freedom. It has nothing to do with your political rights, your social status, or your bank account. It is a purely internal state. It means freedom from your own inner tyrants, your irrational fears, your unchecked appetites, your volatile emotions, and above all, your fragile ego. The person who is a slave to their anger, who is jerked around by their need for validation, who is paralyzed by their fear of failure, this person is not free, even if they live in a palace. The person who has mastered their inner world, who can choose their response to any event with calm and reason, this person is free, even if they are in a prison cell. Who are these inner masters that hold us in bondage? The desire for comfort, the fear of pain, the craving for praise, and the most tyrannical of all, the terror of criticism and the fear of looking foolish. This last master, the ego's obsession with how we appear to others, is perhaps the most powerful chain of all. Consider the story of one of history's greatest self-improvers, Benjamin Franklin. As a young man, he embarked on a famous project to achieve moral perfection. He created a list of 13 virtues: temperance, order, sincerity, humility, and so on, and tracked his progress in a journal every single day. He realized that his natural state was not one of mastery. He was, by his own admission, disorganized, argumentative, and incredibly proud. He understood that to become the person he wanted to be, he had to wage a deliberate, systematic war against his own worst impulses. He had to become his own master. His lifelong struggle with pride is a perfect illustration. He found that even when he thought he had conquered it, he would become proud of his own humility. His ego was a relentless inner tyrant. This is the war we are all fighting. We are all seeking freedom from the parts of ourselves that hold us back. Epictetus gives us the goal. Self-mastery is freedom. But how do we achieve it? How do we defeat these inner tyrants, especially the powerful, ever-present ego that is so afraid of judgment? This leads us to the second, and perhaps most practical, of Epictetus's instructions. It is the secret weapon for dethroning the ego and beginning the real work of self-improvement. He tells us, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. This is the paradox at the heart of all true growth. The very thing we are most afraid of, looking incompetent, is the necessary price of admission for becoming competent. Improvement, by its very nature, is a process of confronting your own ignorance. You cannot learn if you pretend that you already know. You cannot get stronger if you are unwilling to attempt to lift a weight that you might fail to lift. You cannot build a business without being willing to make foolish mistakes and ask stupid questions. Being content to be a fool is the prerequisite for ever becoming a master. Modern psychology has a powerful concept that explains why this is so critical. Psychological safety. In a business or a team, psychological safety is a shared belief that the environment is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. It means you can ask a question, challenge an idea, or admit a mistake without fear of being punished or humiliated. In an environment with high psychological safety, people learn faster, innovate more, and perform better. Now, apply this concept not to a team, but to your own mind. To improve, you must create a state of internal psychological safety. You must create a mental environment where the learner part of you is allowed to be a clumsy, awkward beginner, without being constantly attacked, shamed, and silenced by the critic part of you, your ego. Your ego is the inner boss who punishes every mistake and demands perfection from day one. You must be willing to tell that boss to stand down. You must give yourself permission to be a fool. Let's make this concrete. Think of the person who wants to learn to play the guitar. They buy the instrument, it sits in the corner of their room. Why? Because the first few months of playing a guitar are an exercise in foolishness. You produce horrible buzzing sounds. Your fingers hurt. You feel clumsy and stupid. The ego says, "You're no good at this. You sound terrible. People will laugh at you. Just quit." The person who is a slave to this voice, a slave to the need to appear skilled, never gets past the first week. They are not free to improve. The person who wants to be free understands Epictetus's instruction. They say to themselves, "Yes, I will sound terrible. I will be foolish and stupid at this for a while." That is the necessary path. They create internal safety for the learner within. They are content with the awkward process, and because of that, they are the only ones who have a chance of ever playing beautifully. Their goal is not to look good today. Their goal is to be good in a year. This reveals a powerful dynamic, a virtuous cycle that leads to freedom and a vicious cycle that leads to stagnation. The vicious cycle of the enslaved person goes like this. My goal is to always look smart and competent. To improve at something, I must risk looking foolish. But I am terrified of looking foolish because I am a slave to the approval of others. Therefore, I will not risk it. I will not try. As a result, I do not improve. I do not grow. And I remain a slave to my weaknesses and my ego. I remain unmastered and therefore unfree. The virtuous cycle of the free person goes like this. My goal is to be free, which requires self-mastery. Self-mastery is not a destination, but a process of continuous improvement. I accept that improvement requires me to be a beginner, to be vulnerable, to make mistakes. Therefore, I will be content to be thought foolish and stupid in the pursuit of growth. As I practice, I improve. As I improve, I become more competent and more masterful. The more I master myself, the freer I become. Do you see the connection? The second quote is the key that unlocks the first. The courage to be thought a fool is the act that breaks the chains of the ego, which is the first and most necessary step on the path to mastering yourself. So, the great paradox of the Stoic path is this: the journey to the ultimate power, which is self-mastery, and the ultimate prize, which is freedom, begins with an act of radical humility. It begins with the simple but incredibly difficult decision to be okay with not knowing, with not being good enough yet, with being a work in progress. It asks you to make a choice. Which do you value more? Protecting your ego or pursuing your potential? Do you want to spend your life performing the role of someone who has it all figured out, while being secretly paralyzed by the fear of being exposed? Or do you want to be the person who is brave enough to be a beginner, brave enough to ask the stupid questions, brave enough to fail? and in doing so, earn the genuine, unshakable confidence of the master. Remember the two-part formula from Epictetus. It is the diagnosis and the cure, the goal and the path. The goal is freedom, and no man is free who is not master of himself. And the path to that mastery begins with humility, because if you want to improve, you must be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Dethrone your ego. Embrace the role of the student, and you will find the freedom you are searching for. Thank you for joining us at the Inner Citadel. If this video gave you the courage to embrace your own journey of improvement, please like this video and subscribe for more tools to build a resilient mind. We'll see you next time.